the Age of Fission radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear. Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. Today is Call-In Friday, where we invite our listeners to engage and discuss anything that they'd like that we've been talking about, or bring up any new ideas that are near and dear to your heart, and we can have an open, honest conversation about it. And that usually means that I end up speaking for a good portion of the show. People usually don't call in till the last half, but I would suggest that we break that pattern, so anybody is invited to give us a call at 718-717-8296. The number to call in is 718-717-8296. And that number can actually be found if you go to our website, and that's how you find our radio show, as you found out, at www.ucy.tv. It's right there on the website if you're listening. So this week I thought I would prepare a few things to discuss that have been on my mind this week. All week long we've been holding our breaths, trying to figure out what's going to happen out in the protests out in Bend, Oregon. If those guys were going to go away, or frankly, I was never really clear on what it is they wanted. So I'm not a big proponent of their actions, although when I looked at the FBI, which I thought was very interesting, that the FBI actually made a point of letting us know the shootout was on YouTube, so don't worry, folks, we can go see how they were justified at murdering this man. It was outrageous. I wasn't really behind the protest, but that was a clear murder. And it was a sabotage. If you notice in their film, they had a cop behind him. I mean, he had his hands up. It looked like to me like he got shot, not like he was looking for something in his pocket. It looked like he grabbed his side. So, and when he didn't stop, maybe that's why maybe they did shoot him in the side. And then they got scared because he wouldn't stop. And, frankly, in my view, anybody who works for the FBI or the CIA, they're cowards, because they have to go to extensive efforts to overcome their enemies in ways that are insidious. And it's so ironic that the FBI looked at these people as their enemy. It's very sad, because they are really, those people out there are our brothers and sisters, and as are all the people who protest in the street. So when I was thinking about the way, especially after I saw the video and the social engineering aspect of them making sure we all knew that it was on YouTube, because there's a lot of chatter on YouTube about freedom and independence and patriots, and they're going to get their guns, and which as I said earlier, I was not at all about them taking over federal land. I think the government has an obligation to make sure it takes some federal land to keep it from the uranium miners. let's just be clear. If the federal government did not own, this is the other tragedy of it, keeps it from the uranium miners and decides who gets to get the uranium mining. Because as we know, something like 60 to 70% of all the uranium tailings are on Native American lands. So in fact, there was a protest this last week of Native Americans protesting in Washington, D.C. against all the uranium and against nuclear. They're saying it has to end. So guess what was going on this week when Cliven Bundy got, I mean, not Cliven Bundy, Lavoy, I always call him Americium. I'm sorry for being disrespectful. I didn't, to me, his last name, it seems like a setup, and I think you can hear where I'm going with this. The COMEX was down by 73%. This was reported on ZeroHedge.com. I first heard about it on Sean's station, SGT Report. He had a story on it that day, and it was very interesting about the COMEX went down by 73%. So I thought I'd dig up another story because that was the only place I had seen it and heard about it, and it was quite shocking. But do we think that's a coinky-dinky that they cold-blooded murdered a protester who is an arms rights activist? I guess that's what, our anti-BLM activist. I think that's what he is from my little bit of research. I think that's what the gentleman was, Lavoy Finicum. Now, Finicum, that's his name, Finicum. Doesn't that sound like Americium, something like that? This is what made me look into his background, because he had a YouTube. Now, this was the interesting thing. This man had a YouTube channel for a year or a year and a half before this event happened. But the whole time he was up there, he had put up some things, but you'd think that when this thing went down, one of those people would have grabbed their cameras. And unless the government has, they could have grabbed their camera and gotten it out onto the world. In the time that they were sitting in that car, they could have just turned their cameras on. And if any of you saw the sparks that were flying onto that vehicle long after they shot Mr. Finicum, long after they murdered him, there was guns going off, bing, bing, and you could see the sparks coming off the vehicle. That was outrageous. So listen to what happened the very same day that went down. Something snapped at the COMEX. This is submitted by Tyler Durden at Zero Hedge on 1/26/2016. So I'm going to read this to you. There has been an eerie silence at the COMEX in recent weeks, where after registered gold tumbled to a record 120,000 ounces in early December, nothing much had changed. Remember, this is what I talked to Sean, who, by the way, Sean at the SGT Report is coming back on our radio show, and he'll be back soon, and we are going to be talking about this. Will definitely be on one of our topics. So, in fact, the total amount of physical deliverable, aka registered gold, had stayed practically unchanged at 275,000 ounces all throughout January. Do you remember when I had Sean on, he was telling us that the gold ratio, the actual gold ratio, was 200 certificates of gold to actually every ounce of gold there was. So this has dramatically killed it. Until today, when we learned the latest update from the COMEX vault, we learned that a whopping 201,345 ounces of registered gold had been de-warranted at the owner's request, meaning the people that say they have this gold said, we really don't have that many ounces of gold, but shifted into the eligible category, reducing the total amount of COMEX registered gold by 73%. From 275,000 to just 75,000 overnight. So this happened on the day that Mr. Lavoy Finicum, sounds very much like a radiation name. I mean, honestly, I don't know if the guy actually did die and his plan went south. I don't understand these stories, but I'll be honest, this is just too much of a coinky-dinky. Gold plummeted by 73% the day that we were looking at Lavoy Finicum. being murdered. And we heard it all over the place. And in fact, we heard it on YouTube, which is why the FBI made sure we, YouTubers, made sure that we could go watch that film so that they could justify themselves. And that's exactly what will happen. If any, the sad part, if this is a true story, this is the sad part about Mr. Finicum. This is what I call white male privilege. Because from the accounts of the female that was in the car, and I don't know her name, I heard her on a radio show. She was being interviewed, and I heard her on a YouTube channel giving her story to another person. It's the same story. Her story was pretty much the same. So, again, I don't know if that means she's a valid eyewitness, but maybe she is. He put his arms up in the air and said, "Go ahead, shoot me if you're going to shoot me," or something like that. "Go ahead, shoot me." And he was just goading him. He didn't actually mean it. But I think when I looked at that film, I think they did shoot him. I think they shot him in the side, and he grabbed for his side, and then they mistook that for him grabbing for a weapon and murdered the guy. Either way, there's no way they should have aimed for the head. This was not about war. Those people are not our enemies. Those people belong in this country. They have every right to be on that land as we do, at least not being murdered. If the government wants to take him to jail, that's another thing. Blast out the guy's foot, for God's sakes. That was a murder. This shoot-to-kill attitude by the police, the FBI, has got to stop. But on the day we watched that, gold plummeted by 73%. So then I'm going to move on to this next story that we've been fed a line of garbage at in the last few weeks, is about the Zika virus, coming from South America. If any of you have done your research, you will easily see that in South America, that town where the Zika virus is broken out is a uranium mining town. And these studies have been, for the Zika virus, have been promoted, started, initiated by the World Health Organization, who, as we know, is at the behest of the IAEA to help them cover up the actual harm that nuclear radiation does. It's beyond the 90% rule, folks. It's strictly enforcing the 90% rule. September 29th, 2012, Latin America poised to become uranium superpower. Uranium exploration and production is on the fast track in Latin America as investors begin to realize that a few small cap companies are controlling deposits that could be worth billions, with the B, folks, of dollars. Discoveries have been made in Argentina, Colombia, Guyana, Paraguay, and Peru, all of these projects are likely to come on stream in the next 10 years. So there are a number of reasons for excitement, said Richard Spencer, president and CEO of Canadian uranium exploration company U308 Corp, told mining.com. First, South America has not historically been mined much for uranium, which means investors haven't paid attention to it. So they get to go in there and dig and take advantage of the South Americans. And now we have these children being born with a disease known to be caused by exposure to uranium mining, uranium tailings, radiation exposure. We know it for a fact. And here the World Health Organization is coming out with the Zika virus is now, and it's the women's fault. And by the end of 2012, folks, by the way, we're going to have a vaccine that all pregnant women get to take, and their doctors are going to insist on it. And they are going to make a killing. And when these microencephaly babies continue to be born, these goddamn scientists and doctors are going to scratch their head going, gosh, the virus must be getting immune to us, this vaccine already. It's a fast-moving virus, so we're going to have to come up with a new virus. And they're going to keep plugging women up with all these different stuff. This is so outrageous, folks. I don't know what it's going to take for people to connect the dots. The IAEA is probably the most evil organization on the planet. It has no regards, not only, the environment, the animals, human life, there is no life whatsoever it respects. And then we come to the mad science gone mad. how GMO mosquitoes with self-destruct genes could save us from the Zika virus. And Jules from First Cup in the Morning covered this business. And let me tell you what, this is bull to get us used to taking GMO mosquitoes, to get us saying, oh, okay, we can have GMO mosquitoes. Don't worry about that. No problem. This is about bioengineering. This is about creating a race of humans that's not really humans, folks, to get us all used to it. And, you know, this is the insanity of these. These people are completely insane. Disease after disease after disease. Mammals are plunging. I read to you the mass deaths last week or the week before. Let me give you the phone number again in case anybody wants to comment on any of this. So the phone number is 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. You know, there is no way to prove this, and this is exactly how the IAEA works, the 90% rule works, is they create a cover-up. And it's really hard to prove, but you know what? If you put a map over where these babies are being born and where the women travel to where they're being born, it's a direct correlation, just as like what I did when I first got engaged with this whole project of figuring out how to take our planet back from the people who really produced a coup after World War II, in my view. To be honest, they infiltrated our country. Bravo, mission accomplished, Bushies. I mean, really, when George Bush said mission accomplished, he did not mean, he had nothing to mean with Iraq. He meant we now have installed the Unpatriot Act, which is complete military police action, unfettered military police action, which is unfortunately what Lavoy Finicum is a victim of. That is unfettered police action. And those police officers who murdered him will not go to jail if they are arrested. They might get arrested because the guy's white. I mean, honestly, this is what I say about the whole Lavoy Finicum thing. That is an expression of white male privilege. That guy really did not, I don't think he genuinely believed that the FBI or the state police of Oregon would actually murder him. If that was a black man, do you think a black man would get out of a chase and say, yeah, come shoot me? If they did, what do you think the response would be on television? And the whole, oh my God, we can't believe it happened. Look, we saw a 12-year-old boy get killed by a police officer. And while the guy got indicted, and you know, he actually had a very bad record, that police officer killed that 12-year-old little child. You know, and that guy got off scot-free, no problem. And in fact, he can still be a cop. He can keep on murdering black people. And for those of you out there saying, oh, there's not that much of a racism, yes, there is. Go out in blackface one time. Go try it, folks. The world changes the second you're black in this country. And I do not know why. I don't understand it. It's a very interesting thing. You know, I have been on the YouTube channel. I've been actually watching the black community. I subscribe to some black community news and some other people. I was actually asked to unsubscribe from one channel because I offended some people there by my presence because I'm white. And they really want to feel like they have at least one sacred place to go, which I could accept. You know what I mean? Like, if that's how they really feel about it, whatever. But you know what? I'm beginning to realize by watching these channels that we really do. We don't just have two Americas, you know. Look at Lavoy Finicum. I mean, when I looked at his YouTube channel, I actually wondered if that guy was real. Mostly because he blatantly said he was grazing on BLM land where he wasn't supposed to be. Did we hear that? He said that in his YouTube channels. So we're living in a country where we're actually so completely torn apart, and intentionally so. I mean, intentionally so. Here we go. Gold goes down by 73%. Let me get back to this story, because really, honestly, these things kind of all lace together like a piece of patchwork here, like like they're embroidering a beautiful piece of lace, and it's when it's all covered up, they're going to have a bunch of dead people and a bunch of dead animals. As the chart shows below, which is disturbing without any further context, you should see the chart. There's a flat line, and then it skyrockets up. The 40 million ounces of gold open interest and the record low 74,000 ounces of registered gold imply that as of Monday's close, there was a whopping 542 ounces of potential paper claims to every ounce of physical gold. So for every ounce, 542 ounces of certificates for each ounce of gold. So what are they going to do when the bank collapses and people try to go to cash in on their gold earnings? What are they going to do? I have no idea, man. Some people are going to be so freaked out. You think Lavoy Finicum was a threat to the country? Just wait till you take away people's gold. They think they're investing in gold. And they are not investing in gold. They are investing in a pipe dream. But we got to watch Lavoy Finicum be shot. It came out on the news the day that this happened. Is that a coinky-dinky? Is that an accident? In my view, absolutely not. In this state-run fascist state that was infiltrated by the banksters they started a slow rise up at the beginning of the last century. You know, they started World War I. They instituted the taxation system. They got the banks, again, thanks to Sean over at SGT Report. I actually learned about an entirely new agency that I had never heard of. It was the secret. It's the secret. Honestly, if people here at least do not, at least at the very minimum, subscribe to the SGT Report on YouTube. Sean posts up interviews, but on his webpage and at the Liberty Mill, they have stories written. It's not all just videos. It's actual original stories. You can get the links and things. This is a really great site, even if, you know, just to go read some of the information, because none of it is fake. I've looked, just like this story with the gold. I saw his story the other day, and I thought, I'm going to go look at another source. And here it is right here on Zero Hedge, which is a reputable place. So here we have the Zika virus being shoved down our consciousness as if it's a real thing. And then when that doesn't happen, we have the GMO mosquitoes, which are going to get, guaranteed that if this ever goes in front of the Congress, they're going to speed up, especially if Monsanto Clinton becomes president. Honest to God. Her cabinet members will all be from Monsanto, you guys. If that doesn't scare the daylights out of you and make all of you register as a Democrat to get Bernie Sanders in as the Democratic nominee, I mean, honestly, because Trump's already got the nomination. We just got to keep it from Monsanto Clinton, because that woman is an evil person, in my view. And I'm just going to be unequivocal about it. I don't trust her. I don't like her. She's part of the problem. She's been in a Washington Insider. Monsanto Clinton, and the reason I call her Monsanto Clinton is she does not get the right to call herself a personal name anymore. She has been 100% bought out by Monsanto. She thinks GMOs are great. She's probably all up for these GMO mosquitoes with self-destruct genes to save us from the Zika virus, which, the babies. While at the same time, folks, she personally went over to see the Prime Minister of Japan and told them, don't worry, we are not going to test our food for radiation in the United States ever from Fukushima. And in fact, what did the United States government do to the nuclear volcano that has turned into a nuclear volcano in Fukushima, folks? What did our government do? They raised the radiation standards. That was one of the first things. Barack Obama signed a piece of legislation that has been sitting at the president's desk for a long time and raised the radiation standards. He came out and told us all, don't worry about it, while he and his family went south. Nothing's wrong. Passed the legislation to raise the rates of radiation. From warning us when 1 in 10,000 gets sick from radiation to telling us now when 1 in 26 gets sick. And then they don't count. As we've learned in St. Louis, they're not keeping track of who's getting sick. It's only when we have these major catastrophes like down in Latin America where they're like, oh my God, the uranium mine's leaking. We're getting all these babies. We need to find a reason. Oh, well, we're living in Brazil. That's why. It's mosquitoes. It's hot and muggy down here. There's mosquitoes everywhere. They could be carrying a germ. So then they hire their scientists at the World Health Organization and say, find a virus. Why is this being caused? And you may not look at uranium mining. That's how they do it. At the World Health Organization, the IAEA can tell them, you may not examine for uranium mining. You may not look for radiation in the search for what is causing all these babies to have this problem down in Brazil. That's exactly how the World Health Organization works. So here, I'm going to add it in. Oh my gosh, here's a phone call from my dear beloved Mary. Mary, this is Lonnie. I'm on the radio.
Oh,
So welcome to the Age of Fission radio show, Mary. Say hello to my listeners.
hello, everybody.
I had to answer it, Mary. I could not. You have been a part of this radio show because when I went down to New Orleans and to see you in Homa, I talked about you. So, and I've stopped cussing because of you, actually. So there you go.
Oh, gosh. You've been doing good on that.
Well, you can ask my radio listeners. I have no idea. Today is Call-In Friday, and the number is 718-717-8296. The phone number is 718-717-8296. And so this is Call-In Friday. You know what I do on Call-In Fridays, Maris?
What?
I end up just talking about, very few people call in. I don't know if I don't have a lot of listeners or people just rather listen to me talk. Or if they're just too shy to call. But I have been talking about like how things don't happen in, gold went down by 73% the very day that man got shot in Oregon. So I'm talking about that, and then I'm talking about, this, that Zika virus. Have you heard of that? Probably not, huh? You don't watch TV.
I don't have TV.
So don't you love this, you guys? This is my friend Mary. She doesn't have a television. She lives like no internet in her home, no television, and no cable.
Well, I have internet on my phone now. That's why I was able to do this. I just connected to Skype because Matthew is in Guam, and I was trying to get in touch with him. So you're the only one. You're the only one online. I said, let me try you.
Okay, well, Mary, look.
But I've been thinking about you.
Well, I'm so glad you called me, but you know what? I'm glad that you shared this. Let me call you back when the radio show is over, and thanks for joining us because I think it was awesome.
Thank you.
I'll call you when I'm done, and I'll tell you what I talked about, and you'll be shocked.
Okay, good to talk to you, listeners.
You can go to www.ucy.tv or just Skype, just Google in Age of Fission, and you can hear me on the radio show live right now.
Okay.
Age of Fission, Fission.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
So there you go, Age of Fission radio show. You actually got to hear my friend Mary. Like, she is seriously from the deep south and seriously disconnected, and what a great way to live. No wonder I came back there happy. Because I actually did scout out because I think it's important. I talked to Mary about this quite a bit. She's aware of it, but she's among those millions of Americans out there who really go to church every single week. In fact, she goes to church 3 or 4 times a week and thinks it's really a shame that the government's doing this and doesn't really understand how to stop it or how to stand up to them. And I don't believe she'd ever even go to a protest. I mean, just like these people in Flint, and this is where my story was going, because what we have in our country is environmental racism. As I said earlier in the show, we have, uranium mines. The uranium mine tailings are mostly on Native American lands, 60 to 70%. And if you follow the 90% rule, that means that there's a lot of uranium mines. I mean, when you look at where the uranium mines are in our country, They're all near Native American lands. Almost all of them are on Native American areas. They're reservations. Uranium One, right there in the heart of Wyoming. Energy Fields Resources Corporation in Colorado. Denison Mines USA Corporation, Colorado. LaSalle Mines Complex. They're right on the border of Utah. Energy Fields Resource Corporation, the border of Utah and Arizona. Uranium Energy Corporation, New Mexico. And in Texas, two of them. Uranium Energy Corporation near San Antonio. On the edge near the water where they need the water. And then most of us know about the Virginia uranium mining in Virginia. So, and let's don't mention the uranium mines in Canada. Dana Durnford's already found out when you go up against the Canadian government, they don't mess around. Although does the United States government mess around? They pretty much killed that guy. But I don't think it was I think as it turned out with Lavoy Finicum, it was not the FBI. It was a so-called local sheriff, a state police officer who did that. So, or so they say. That's the point about it, I guess. We're also freaking gaslit. We can't even figure out what's right. So let me give you guys the phone number again, 718-717-8296. I have to say, that call from Mary delighted me because she is just one of the most beautiful, pure people in my life that I've ever met. And so it was really, anytime I hear her voice, it just makes me happy. So this is one of the things, we've been hearing about the Flint water and like how bad the Flint water is. Well, nobody knows about the hundreds of thousands of people with radioactive. Highly, way above what our government did. Let me get back to you. I think that's where I was before Mary called. What our government did to us, what Monsanto Clinton did to us after Fukushima. And maybe many of you know, they raised the rates from warning us from 1 in 10,000 to now they're going to warn us when 1 in 26 get cancer. It's either 23 or 26, but I'm pretty sure it's 26. I've seen those two numbers, but I'm pretty sure it's 26. So now they're not going to tell us. And then they don't look. And we are not testing for food that is illegal to sell in Japan because it's too radioactive. We are living on a radioactive planet, and it is not by accident. Dayton Wigington is talking about these microengineering. The geoengineering, and I heard David Icke speak about this, and he seems to think that what they're spraying on us is these micro nanotechnology to get into our bodies, to like create us to be something different. So where did this Comex money go? Back on the weaving lace. I'm creating this embroidery lace. The Exchange Stabilization Fund, which was secretly passed by our Congress in 1934, a secret bank, secret that does the whole black ops thing. It's where all the money goes. It's where things disappear in the black hole of the Pentagon. That's where it all goes. So speaking of our budgets, here we have races in the air as we breathe and the water we drink in Flint, Michigan. The moral failure of Flint. This is the HuffPost Good News. Races in the air. We breathe. Oh, this is them with their stupid titles. Races in the air we breathe and the water we drink. The moral failure in Flint. So, blah, blah. We know it's about environmental racism. We have them dumping uranium mines on Native American lands. They have very poor things. And then there's a story that CNN wrote. $600 million bill to help Flint, Michigan faces tough road in Congress. Why does it face a tough road in Congress? That's my question. Why would anybody even fight this when we have contaminated pipes and contaminated water in a gigantic city of several 100,000 people? Why is that? What this says is John Cornyn, the Mr. Texas guy who could care less about the environment, pushes nuclear and could care less about anybody that is not rich. I think we need to be careful here because while we have a sympathy for what's happened, this is primarily a local and state responsibility. Yes, it is, but you know what? The infrastructure is a national emergency, just like St. Louis is a national emergency. I mean, really, this is the guy who's pumping for us to keep building up the war machine so we can spread our drones and spy on Americans, but he doesn't want to take care of the water system in another state. Wait till it comes to Arizona. Wait till in Texas. Wait till it happens down there. They have uranium mines. I just read that. Right, and will he care? Probably not. I mean, I venture to say, I wonder what the cancer rates are down there, but guess what? Nobody counts. That's how, perfect, quote, perfect. Look where they put this. Uranium mining near San Antonio and another uranium mine near Fort Worth. So we know what those are all about, right? It's all military spending. It's all about the military. So when these bankers took over, that's what they had to do, enforce the fascist state in the United States. So they started the secret banking. They started the banking at the beginning of the century, created a secret bank during the end of World War II, infiltrated the United States with the mad dog scientists from the Nazi regime, started the industrial food complex, the industrial healthcare complex, the military complex, turned the United States into the Bolshevik, into exactly what the Soviet Union was trying to create. They did it better. Why do you think, whose father was it that went over to Russia and trained I think it wasn't that Romney's dad? He went over to Russia and trained them how to create oil fields over there. One of these mega Republican types. His dad went over there and trained them. That's where they made their millions, teaching the Russians, the Soviet Russians, how to develop their oil industry. And then came back here. I mean, it is a shakedown, folks. It's a complete shakedown. Let me give you the number again, 718-717-8296. I'm going to keep reading these stories because, honestly, this is such an outrage. This Latin American thing about Latin America becoming this superpower, a superpower because of uranium. We have got to join the Native Americans and start demanding an end to uranium mining. This is just completely insane. These people in South America are being affected. You know what causes that disease from those children? John Goffman studied it quite well. Our Congress studied it quite well in the early 70s and 60s. They had hearings. You can look it up. I mean, they have found out that the uranium tailing mining causes this disease. And it's an outrage that our Department of Energy and the International Atomic Energy Agency will comply for the sake of money. And I don't believe it's really just for the sake of money. I think they're doing it because it is such a deep freaking mess that they are scared shitless, excuse my language. But they are scared to death that these people will find out. And we don't just have pitchforks, folks. This is not going to be the French Revolution. And maybe that's why they killed Lavoie Finnegan, to prove to people that they would kill anybody. Because Lavoie Finnegan suffered from a bad case of white manitis, man. He honestly did believe that they would not kill him because he was white. He had this basic white male privilege where he thought he could do anything. And you know what? Do you think a black man would get out of a car and say, shoot me, and then be shocked that they shot him? Heck no. You think we'd be reporting on it? You think the FBI would come out with a statement that says, oh, we're going to show you the exact tape of how we shot this guy? No. Those protesters would have been dead the first day if they were black. That's the reality. And for people to say that's not true is bull. The cops killed children, black children in this country, and get away with it. There was a baby in this last year. A baby was shot by a cop. The cop didn't go to jail. He didn't lose his job. They said, oh, it was an accident. Really? They came in the house just toting guns and shooting first, asking questions later, and called this child's death a mere accident. I don't know. I don't know how anybody in this country cannot be angry enough to get active. I got into this very timidly myself, I have to confess, because I honestly was scared to death of our government after they investigated me. But then when I realized, you know what, I can't be scared of them. I actually regretted not staying active since 2009 until 2012. After I got investigated by the Capitol Police for Mike Pence's office lying about me to the Capitol Police, saying that I threatened to murder their staff when I called up and said, your vote against giving people $400 a week might cause one of them to starve or freeze to death this winter. They called the Capitol Police and said I threatened to murder their staff. And as some peace activists here in Eugene kind of laughed at me and said, hey, are you joking? You can't call those offices. And if you mention anything that they're going to harm anyone, they will always call the Capitol Police and say you threatened to murder them. You can expect to hear from the Capitol Police, just like I was not that naive the day that I called on Skype to these elected officials that Friday. The very next day, Skype was removed from my computer. You know, the right hand of intimidation is swift in this country. And as Tim DeChristopher has found out, you know, he didn't do anything illegal. Snowden has been deemed a traitor by a lot of people. When he, you know, who's the traitor? Clapper. Clapper went in front of my own senator, who I also consider to be a traitor, Ron Wyden, who knew that Clapper was going to lie to him under oath. I'm telling you what, that has never settled with me, folks. That is such a lack of integrity. It's off the charts. That is exactly what's wrong. And so let's talk about white male privilege here, because I'm going to keep on. I see that we're at 8:41. I really want to get to this story. This is really something else. North Dakota deep borehole test could help Hanford. Listen how they plan on helping Hanford, folks. The Department of Energy, now when was this story written? This story was written January 7th, 2016. The Department of Energy is preparing to drill a test borehole more than 3 miles deep in North Dakota rock formation to study a proposed method that could be used for some of Hanford's radioactive waste. That's the help. They're going to just move this toxic waste around and destroy North Dakota with toxic nuclear radioactivity. A team led by Battaglia Memorial Institute in Columbus, Ohio, has been chosen to drill the test borehole. This is an important first step in increasing our scientific understanding for the potential uses of crystalline rock formations, including the feasibility of boreholes as an option for long-term nuclear waste, said Energy Secretary Moniz in a statement. Honestly, these people think that everything on the planet is for their use. There is nothing sacred. If they can go, they're like 2-year-olds. If they can go in there and just destroy it, they think they have a right to do that. He has previously discussed deep boreholes as a promising option for the disposal of the 1,936 radioactive cesium and strontium capsules stored underwater in central Hanford. Almost 2,000 radioactive cesium. You like how they call them capsules? Just to make it super easy. This material was removed from the high-level waste tanks at Hanford in 1972. So you moved it from one place to another place to reduce the temperature of the waste inside those tanks. The waste is left from the past processing of irradiated fuel to remove plutonium for the nation's nuclear weapons program. We have had enough of that. We need to end everything nuclear, and these insane people need to put their science. Look at what they're doing. DOE plans to spend $35 million, a 5-year project, to test. They're going to spend $35 million to test the boreholes on a 20 acres of state-owned land in North Dakota. You get that? They're going to spend, instead of testing $35 million, look at their budget. They spend no money on how to fix, how to remediate, how to change the molecules. They don't spend any money on how to reverse the negative effects of radiation. All they're doing is trying to bury it in the ground and destroy any barren land that we have. This is such an outrage. It's such an outrage. And if the people of North Dakota again here think they have any options. Your white male privilege is going to be hardly knocked up against, because whatever the DOE wants, the DOE gets. And that is the answer. No option. Unless you get thousands and thousands and thousands of people and you get these elected officials scared that they will never get a job in their lives. But they're reassuring us. This just makes us feel so good. No radioactive material will be used in the test project. So the state gets to have $35 million come into it. So North Dakota probably is very happy about this. You would think. But then we come to another story at the Grand Forks Herald. Officials raise concern about proposed drilling project that could lead to nuclear waste disposal in North Dakota. Plans to drill a 3-mile deep hole. Now, what did they say here? How deep this was? They talked about it in different terms, didn't they? No, 3-mile deep. 3-mile deep hole near Rugby to test whether certain rock formations are suitable for storing radioactive waste bumped into a thick layer of skepticism Thursday from state and county officials who fear the federal government is grooming North Dakota to become a nuclear disposal site. This is Governor Jack Dalrymple, I think that's his name. It seems to me that you normally would test where you're thinking that you might actually do something. Doing, doing, doing. That guy gets a star. No wonder he's the governor. Okay, it says, who chairs the State Board of University and School Lands that must approve a lease for the proposed drilling on the state-owned land, trust land. So they'll do what they did to New Mexico, folks. Either you take our money and we're burying this waste here, or you don't take our money and we're burying this waste here. Try to stop us. That's how the DOE and the U.S. military work. That's their MO. They have no regard for human life, life on the planet, our environment. All they do is lie, lie, and lie. And people in our country are dying of cancer at uncontrollable rates. Our medical system is so inadequate. We are not even tracking adequately where were you born and counting that in for finding out how people got these cancers, which we know take 20 to 30 years to seed in many instances. Or looking at the genetic defects of, how many people, I've heard many people on the television actually up in New York say, my baby has special needs and I have this special needs child. People all over the East Coast have special needs children. And what are the rates? And are they even tracking that in comparison to where these nuclear facilities are? No. They are coming out with the avian flu. They're coming out with the Zika flu. I keep calling it Zitka. I don't know why. Zika flu. You know, they keep coming out with all these different things that they can blame so they don't have to look at what is really causing it. The elephant in the room, the big disaster that they have no idea. Their idea of cleaning up Hanford is to go drill holes in North Dakota and bury the waste. That's their idea of fixing the problem at Hanford. Now, I don't know how anybody out there isn't just steaming like flame is coming out of my nose. This week with killing that man, straight up murdering Lavoy Finicum, if it was real. See, I have a hard time believing it's real because he had a YouTube channel. Those people have YouTube channels. They were posting up until the day they started getting shot by the feds. Really? On the day that the COMEX crashed, 73%, miraculously, 73% of the known gold certificates went down. I mean, something about that stinks, folks. It just does not seem right. I'm so dumbfounded. I mean, so we have all this information. What do we do with it? I don't know. Here we are. Energy Secretary Moniz called this an important first step in understanding the potential uses of crystalline rock formations that underlie much of the continent, including the feasibility of boreholes as an option for long-term nuclear waste disposal. Their plan is to dig deep 3 miles deep and pump all this stuff back in the ground. Maybe they think that they're complying with the Native Americans' warning not to bring the uranium up. Why didn't they think of that like 70 years ago? Right now, we have whales dying at unprecedented rates. We are killing our planet. And this is their answer. Just dig a big hole because they're not spending any money on how to change the dynamics of the radiation. They have done no studies, or at least they haven't shown us or talked about it. They haven't said anything about it. There's nothing in the budget. All they do is deny, 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 deny. It is so outrageous. I don't know how people don't just spit nails. So you know how we always say, this is another thing that came out this week that we didn't hear. Let me see if I can find this story. Radioactive waste dogs, Germany, despite abandoning nuclear. Yep. The radioactive waste in Germany that has been buried underground, the tunnels are collapsing. This is the scariest thing for the Europeans right now. They have cracks in their underground storage waste in Germany. So enough plutonium-bearing radioactive waste is stored here to fill 20 Olympic swimming pools. When engineers backfilled the chambers containing 126,000 drums in the 1970s, they thought they had put it out of harm's way forever. Right. This is exactly what Moniz wants to do. But now the walls of the ASSE mind, I guess if you're going to put something in the ASSE mind, you should expect it to collapse, are collapsing and cracks are forming thanks to pressure from the surrounding rocks. So the race is on to dig it all up before the radioactive residue is flushed to the surface. It could take decades to resolve. In the meantime, excavation needed to extract the drums could cause new collapses and make the problem worse. So the phone number this morning, folks, is 718-717-8296. We have time for one call, or I guess two if you get off the phone pretty quick, but if you want to call in. But this is, it is up for us to connect all these dots and start thinking about it. These people in Germany, when they thought they went offline, they have got much bigger problems now. This is just one part of Germany's nuclear nightmare. The country is also wrestling with a growing backlog of spent fuel, and it has to worry about the vast volumes of radioactive rubble that will be created as all of the country's 17 nuclear plants are decommissioned by 2022, a decision taken 5 years ago in the aftermath of Fukushima's disaster. The final bill for decommissioning power plants and getting rid of the waste is estimated to be at least 36 billion pounds. Some 300,000 cubic meters of low and intermediate level waste requiring long-term shielding, including what is dug from the ASSE mine, is earmarked for final burial at the Conrad Iron Mine in Lower Saxony. Wow. What will happen to the high-level waste, the spent fuel, and the highly radioactive waste that must be kept safe for 1,000,000 years is still to be debated. The hubris of the nuclear industry to think that they can just keep making this stuff. This is the issue. Even if we close down every single nuclear mine in the country right now, every uranium plant, every nuclear power plant, we still have 200-300 years of just science to figure out what to do with this stuff. Their only answer is to shove it back in the earth. This is what they're doing. When these mad scientists gone mad after World War II broke the atom, and the scientists who broke that thing changed their minds and said, please don't use it. Please don't go any further with this. They all became anti-nuclear. Every sound scientists did. I mean, the hubris of Dr. Alvin Weinberg, who frankly did his best, and Teller did his best. These two scientists alone were probably the most insane scientists we've ever had in the history of humanity. It's such an outrage, folks. I just can't get over this. And yet at the same time, we're all freaked out in America about our loss of rights. We lost our rights after World War II when the Nazis invaded our frickin' country, when the military took over. Eisenhower didn't give us a warning of what could happen. He was subtly warning us of what would happen, what did happen, what has happened. For goodness sakes. But you know what? This is where I fault our elected officials. They ought to be willing, like Paul Wellstone, he was willing to die for our country, and guess what he did? Senator Paul Wellstone went down to Florida to find out what the real story was. He could not figure out, because what he was getting from the testimony in D.C. never made sense. So him and his family went down to Florida to find out the real truth about 9/11 from some people that were living there. And on his way back, he and his family were all in an accident. In an accident. And right now we have weathermen disappearing. Look that up too. We have weathermen who are finally standing up against the geoengineering and starting to speak out. There's that young guy that he committed suicide. They're all being suicided. You know, Michael Hastings did not kill himself. He was not on drugs. He did not hit a tree. He was murdered. Aaron Schwartz did not hang himself. He was murdered. You know, this is so outrageous. No one even questions these official stories. It's such an outrage. It's so obvious. You know, Eisenhower said nothing to keep his family alive, I'm sure. He sat there and, you know, our elected officials need to be willing to talk about this, because we have a secret government that is run by the Exchange Stabilization Fund. As it turns out, the secret is coming out. And as the gentleman who was on that I heard and that wrote this story said, now that the name is out, now that it's out there, they'll probably change the name, and this name of this fund, Exchange Stabilization Fund, won't become so big deal. Like now we know about their secret meetings, right? The Illuminati, we know about that. So these meetings that they have once a year, they're not that important because people know about it. They're not dumb. They're just evil, super evil, man, with lots of money. And they get to make us think about things and make us twist our heads up and make us ignore the nuclear pollution. They are killing our planet with nuclear pollution and full barreling ahead. It's the only industry that is 100% subsidized, folks. It is 100% subsidized by our government for the actions of the military so we could have nuclear weapons, period. The problem with nuclear weapons and with uranium mining is it causes babies to have encephaly. It causes weird leukemias and cancers. When I gave you that rate of 30, I was reading the statistic again that John Goblin was talking about. For every 2 rads in the air, the government, the NRC, has an allowable level of, and in fact it's worse since they raised the rates, since Obama raised the rates after Fukushima. It's much worse than that now. But prior to Fukushima, it was 2 rad. For every 2 rads of radiation in the air, they allowed 32,000 cancers and 225,000 genetic birth defects. But that was for a population of 2 million. So you can multiply that. What do we have, 6 million? Or I don't know how many people we have, but a population of 2 million people. That's what that is. So this is why they have allowed a cancer epidemic, and we built a whole cancer industry because we have the nuclear pollution, and now we have the World Health Organization finding a scientist that says, hey, find a reason for these diseases, but you can't study radiation. That's how it's going to be. So I can see I have, you know what, gone on for almost the whole entire hour, folks, all by myself. My friend Mary called in, and you got to hear her voice and understand what I meant when I said earlier that she really lives in a different world because she does not have television and barely connects to the internet. And there are millions of people like that in our country, and it is up to us to talk to them and share information, which I do with her in a way that she can take it. And that's our mission. And as you know, there have been many speakers out there saying it's up to us. The easy thing is it's easy to set your goals too low and hit the mark. So we need to raise our goals higher. Be determined to overcome these monsters. Put your courage feet on. Take the action. Live your mission. Live your conscience. You know, thank you for joining me this morning, and we'll talk to you guys on Monday.